Part of the fun of world building is uncovering as many of the world-shaping forces as possible and letting those forces push against one another until you discover the places those forces equalize. Over the past 9 months, most of the forces at play in the world of dead gods are now known, or at least apprehended enough for my purposes. The overall climate is that of a worldwide, invigorating hyperbaric chamber that preserves and prolongs life. Consequentially, humans share the planet with a colossal and deadly ecosystem of flora and fauna. Despite the many threats around them, through centuries of experience and the influence of the insidious Fallen Watchers, they've learned how to survive using their knowledge and incredible lost technologies. This perilous world is dotted with powerful, opulent civilizations at their peak. With all of these forces pressing against one another, I can start to find the place where they meet. This means that anything that gets added to this project will be subjected to these forces before my pencil even touches the paper. From chairs to cities to mountain ranges to monsters, they'll all be run through this same filter. This will help me to create a more believable, cohesive setting in which the story of Dead Gods can take place. I'm going to use this video, which will be a part 1, to run the clothing of the antediluvian world through some of these forces and see what comes out the other side. Then in part 2, I'll let some of the other elements press in, and we'll see where things end up. To start, I drew up some figures to use as a base. This is a perilous world, and while people are granted longer and more resilient lives, surviving past 100 would still be rare. You must be resourceful, strong, and skilled to endure, so the majority of living characters will be somewhere on the classical heroic proportion spectrum. The first major influence on costume that I'll cover is the climate. In the setting of Dead Gods, there's a firmament in the heavens above, a dense layer of water and other particles in the upper atmosphere, filtering out harmful rays and particles, locking in heat and applying pressure to the atmosphere below. This has turned the entire world into a greenhouse. The clothes that people wear will reflect that. I've referenced examples from across antiquity, specifically from climates that were regularly hot and humid. They are breathable, allowing for airflow across the skin. Footwear protects the feet, but I'll be leaning towards styles that preserve the same breathability. I want to find a balance between simple but sophisticated. In one of my earliest videos about the hunter's entourage, my first pass at costumes read as 2 cavemen. They were simple, but in a primitive way. On my second pass, I tried to add a layer of sophistication and style to hint at a more advanced civilization. This is the foundational layer, with fabrics woven largely from wool, cotton, or linen, depending on what's readily available. After a first round, I looked at everything together and decided to make a couple changes. I wanted to shorten this guy's sleeves and bind them up with the twisted fabric rope like his counterpart. I'm thinking ahead to eventually adding armor and other accessories, but also to separate it visually from some of the other costumes. I also didn't think that the dress or sleeves on this outfit worked. I made the hanging shoulders smaller and tucked in the bottom to reflect a more classical look. For this guy, he had his sleeves reduced as well. In the setting of Dead Gods, the worst of the sun's rays are dissipated by the firmament, so there isn't as much need to protect yourself from it. I wanted to include a version that had some layers to it. These were all influenced by a large collection of references, some from the ancient world and some from Art Deco sculpture. The neoclassical look of Art Deco was meant to evoke other empires at their height, their decadence and power. In most cases, the costumes are quite minimal in order to show off impressive and beautiful physiques. Another ingredient to add to the mix is pattern. Embroidery, weaving, dyeing, there are many techniques that can be used to create patterns. In the end, these will all be contextual, fitting the theme and setting of any particular story moment. I really just wanted to get a few rough ideas out. I think that spirals will have a particularly serpentine connotation in this story. Thankfully, serpents are a versatile symbol and can be represented in many ways. Wavy lines work well too, for example. I'm still conscious of the connection between the Nephilim, clowns, and hallucinogenic machine elves. In a lot of cases, I'll be using pattern to connect the thread between these. I think that Nephilim fashion should get its own video, but we should see their influence in human costumes as well. I tried a handful of high-contrast patterns that are also found in ancient reference material. Stripes are an easy one. You can't go wrong with stripes. Stripes, triangles, simple geometry, but quite effective. Really just trying to keep the shapes big and simple. These would not be subtle. I'm imagining that many people would find these high-impact patterns quite appealing, And there may also be a small amount of camouflage advantage to these. Dazzle camouflage is used not to hide something in its environment, but to make the shape of an object difficult to discern. It makes it harder for a predator to tell which part of the body to attack, or even if it's a body at all. Finally, I'm putting a visual pin in an idea for later. A while ago, I talked about the Nephilim sculptor, part of a cult that believes that they can find the secrets of the universe in geometry. I think that'll be a cool theme to dig into more later on, so here I'm just using a simple flower of life pattern as a stand-in. Okay, for these, ignore the tattoos, I'll get back to them in just a moment. But another force being applied is the flora and fauna of this world. It provides a tremendous opportunity that I'm still just scratching the surface of. Even when the story takes us out of the wilderness, we'll be reminded of it through clothing. I've already used animal pelts in other illustrations. The entire ecosystem of the prehistoric world is at my fingertips, so I have to put it to good use. Here we see the skin of something striped, and a small piece of mammoth hide used as a cape. It will be particularly fun to use dragon skin, going back and forth between designing cool-looking patterns on the creatures, and then finding ways for people to adorn themselves with it as well. I'm also going to have to remember that it's not just the fauna that can be used. This version is a little on the obvious side. That's okay for a first pass. It's really just to remind myself to make use of the plant life of this world. It's possible to go as subtle as linen, which can look like any other fabric, but there are also opportunities for larger woven fibers, barks, bamboos. As always, the intimidating part is that my own imagination is the limit. Okay, now I'll talk about tattoos. For these two, I'm trying out a handful of wildlife-inspired patterns. As they observe the natural world, they seek to invoke the beauty and strength of the things they see. High-contrast animal print tattoos also provide an elegant opportunity to play into more of that Nephilim clown throughline. As with the hides, as more creatures are designed, there will be more opportunities to spread those patterns and colors around. Another critical force at play in the world of dead gods is gods. There will be many self-professed gods of all shapes and sizes. They'll have a spectrum of acolytes and worshippers, and they'll want to be identified as such. In some cases, being recognized as a servant of some god or other might be the only thing that spares you from a bored giant or a watcher. Here I explored a selection of tattoos that would be worn by devotees of the Great Serpent. While on the subject of devotion, I also wanted to draw up some of their actual adornment. So, keeping with the theme of the Great Serpent, I drew up two acolytes that serve different roles in one of the serpent's countless temples. This guy wears a ceremonial mask and shackles. Around his neck, he wears a serpent skull with fangs threaded through the string. He's painted gray because I thought it would look cool. Beside him is a priestess. She wears a long, dark tunic with a serpent embroidered in gold down the front. Who knows what kinds of ceremony she oversees? Back to tattoos again. There's another element to work with, and that is the secret knowledge of the Watchers. These tattoos represent magic spells, sigils used for the purpose of protection or power. Words have incredible power. All of creation was spoken into being after all. The Watchers have crafted their own fell words, subversions of creation. In this story, they're not just placebos either. While they may not have the effect that the wearers believe they have, they are powerful, sparing people from death, but only when death would have been a mercy, granting them incredible strength, but only to murder, lengthening their already long lives, while also sapping it away. I've covered a handful of the forces at play, from climate to the ecosystem, to worship, to a bit of secret knowledge, but there are still a few more to apply to clothing, particularly the technology available to them and the dangers of this world, from dragons to giants to other humans. I thought I'd at least take a crack at some of those elements before working on the next video. This world is dangerous. Murder and crimes are commonplace. If you cross paths with a giant, it may ignore you, or you may become its entertainment for the day. Living behind colossal stone walls might provide some safety, but many deadly creatures can climb, others can fly, and who knows if some lunatic might bribe the guards to open the town gates just for the fun of it. Living in this perpetual peril, everyone will end up wearing some amount of armor. I'm revisiting an older design from the video about glass. I liked how that turned out, but I wanted to design a slightly more refined version of it. My favorite part here is the helmet, with a glass visor and a crest pressed to subtly evoke stegosaur spikes. Glass can be a striking material, and I want to see if I can find some new ways to use it in this context. In my video about the Watchers, I implied that its use was first inspired by Shamsiel. Wearing advanced glass armor would provide some protection, but it may also be a way to signal your devotion to him. Well, here we have it. A first real pass at the clothing of dead gods. Costume design will be an ongoing task throughout the entire project, but focusing on each of these subjects forces me to be more intentional about them. I'm searching for guiding principles, the forces that will shape all future designs. And this is a start. I've got some material to work with here. In the next video, I'll look at how the forces at play in this world lead its people to integrate armor and technology into their clothing, and maybe a couple other things as well. Thanks for watching.